Late afternoon sun drenched Atlanta's Edgewood block in gold, as 9-year-old Jamal and Jada Lewis waved from their stoop, red sneakers flashing, watching Mum's car fade for her night shift. Sirens shattered the calm, tires squealed, cops swarmed with guns drawn, yelling, "Arsonists!" Rough hands cuffed the twins as neighbors stared. Flames roared, their house crumbled into ash. A cop sneered, "That's what you get." A judge's car peeled away in the smoke. Who framed them, and why? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice against corruption, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's explosive episode will leave you speechless. The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps, casting a sickly glow over the cracked linoleum floor where Jamal and Jada Lewis sat, wrists aching in cold steel cuffs. 9 years old, their red sneakers dangled above the ground, too small to touch it from the metal chairs bolted to the wall. Jamal's left eye twitched, still seeing the orange blaze swallow their home, while Jada chewed her lip, tasting smoke that clung to her braids. Separated by a chipped concrete divider, they couldn't even hold hands. Only steel glances through the gap, wide brown eyes reflecting confusion and fear. The air stank of sweat and burnt coffee, thick with the low hum of officers shuffling papers and barking orders. A clock ticked above, stuck at 7:32, as if time itself mocked their plight. Footsteps thudded closer, heavy and deliberate, like a storm rolling in. Judge Harlan Voss strode through the precinct doors, his shadow stretching long across the room. 6 feet of wiry muscle in a tailored black suit, his grey hair slicked back, he carried the weight of authority like a weapon. A tiny Confederate flag pin glinted on his lapel, catching the light as he moved. His face, weathered and sharp, held a permanent sneer, lips thin as a blade. He stopped at the desk where 2 cops lounged, one picking his teeth with a pen, the other scrolling his phone. Voss tossed a plastic bag onto the scratched wood surface, the clatter making Jamal flinch. Inside were charred matchsticks, their tips blackened and curled. "Lewis Kids prints," Voss said, voice gravelly and low, pointing a bony finger at the twins. "Caught red-handed." The tooth-picking cop snorted, leaning back in his swivel chair until it creaked. "Black kids love fire, huh? Born with gasoline in their veins." His partner chuckled, not looking up from his screen, thumbs tapping. Out a text. "Little pyros probably torched the whole block for kicks." Jamal's fists balled tight, nails digging into his palms, but he kept his mouth shut, knowing words wouldn't help. Jada's breath hitched, a small sound lost in the precinct's din, her gaze darting to the matches. She'd never seen them before, not in their kitchen junk drawer or the stoop where they'd waved to Mum. Her mind raced, piecing together the impossible. Those weren't theirs. The precinct door slammed open again, hinges groaning, and Tanya. Lewis burst in. Her nurse's scrubs wrinkled from a double shift she'd barely started. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her braids loose and wild from running 3 blocks, when her co-worker called about the fire. Her chest heaved as she scanned the room, spotting her twins cuffed like criminals. "Jamal, Jada!" she cried, voice raw, shoving past a desk to reach them. A burly officer stepped into her path, arms crossed, his badge reading Sergeant Pike. "Back off, lady," he growled, shoving her shoulder hard enough to make her stumble. Tanya caught herself on a chair, eyes blazing. "Those are my kids!" "What's going on?" Voss turned slowly, sizing her up like a hawk eyeing prey. "Your spawn burned down your house, Mrs. Lewis," he said, drawing out her name with mock politeness. "Arson, felony charges, evidence is airtight." He tapped, the bag of matches with a knuckle, the plastic crinkling under his touch. Tanya's jaw dropped, then snapped shut, fury replacing shock. "That's a lie. They were home all day waiting for me. You can't just pin this on them." Her voice shook, but she stood tall, 5'6" of defiance against a system Drew didn't care. The phone-scrolling cop finally looked up, smirking as he tucked his device into his pocket. "Got witnesses, lady. Neighbors saw them lighting up. Video too. You should have taught 'em better." Tanya's hands clenched into fists, nails biting her skin as she fought to keep calm. "What witnesses? What video? Show me," she demanded, stepping closer despite Pike's looming bulk. Voss waved a hand dismissively, turning to a filing cabinet. He yanked open a drawer, pulled out a thick manila folder, and slapped it on the desk. It landed with a thud, papers spilling slightly, revealing grainy stills from a security cam. Two small figures in hoodies near their house, flames flickering in the background. The faces were blurred, but the red sneakers stood out, identical to the twins. Jamal leaned forward, squinting at the photos through the divider. "That's not us," he whispered, voice cracking. "We don't have hoodies like that." Jada nodded, her braids brushing her shoulders. "We were on the stoop, not back there. Mom, tell them." Tanya whirled on Voss, pointing at the images. "Those aren't my kids. Anyone can wear sneakers. This is nonsense." But Voss didn't flinch, his sneer widening into something cruel. "Control your spawn, Mrs. Lewis," he said, voice dripping venom, "or they'll drag you down with them." Pike grabbed Tanya's arm, twisting it behind her back as she gasped in pain. "Time to go," he grunted, shoving her toward the exit. She resisted, planting her feet, her sneakers squeaking on the floor. "I'm not leaving my babies. You can't do this." The second cop joined in, gripping her other arm, and together they hauled her out, her shouts echoing down the hall. "Jamal, Jada, I'll fix this." The door slammed shut behind her, muffling her voice, leaving the twins alone again under the flickering lights. Voss turned back to the desk, flipping open the folder to reveal more damning lies. Their typed witness statement claimed Mrs. Carter from 2 houses down saw Jamal strike a match at 6:15. Another swore Mr. Evans, the corner store owner, sold Jada a lighter that morning. Both were dated, signed, notarized, all neat and legal. Jamal's stomach twisted. He'd been playing checkers with Jada all afternoon, nowhere near Evans's store. Jada's eyes burned with tears she wouldn't let fall, staring at the papers. "They're making it up," she hissed, barely audible. "Why?" The cops kept piling on, their laughter grating against the twins' ears. "Got a whole playlist of footage," Pike said, pulling out a tablet. He tapped the screen, and a shaky video played. 2 kids in hoodies tossing something into the Lewis house's back window, flames erupting seconds later. The timestamp read 6:45, right when Tanya was kissing them goodbye. "See. Open." "And shut," Pike said, shutting off the tablet with a smug flick. Voss nodded, scribbling a note on a legal pad. "Juvenile detention by morning. Adult charges pending. They'll learn their place." Jamal's heart pounded, a drumbeat of panic and rage. He wanted to scream, to smash the table, but the cuffs bit deeper with every move. Jada's mind churned, replaying the day. Checkers, lemonade, waving to Mom. Nothing fit this nightmare. The precinct buzzed around them, officers filing reports, phones ringing, a radio crackling with static. One voice cut through low and quick as Pike muttered to the other cop, while Voss stepped away to take a call. "Boss has a personal stake in this," Pike said, barely above a whisper, glancing at the judge's back. "Old beef with their blood." The words hit Jada like a slap, her head snapping up. Personal stake? Old beef? She locked eyes with Jamal. Through the divider, his face mirroring her shock. They didn't know any judges, didn't cross anyone like Voss. Their dad, Eric, flashed in her mind, a fuzzy memory of a tall man in a suit who left when they were 3. Tanya never talked. About him only said he was gone for good. Could Voss mean him? Jamal's mouth opened, then closed, fear choking his question. The cop noticed their stares, smirked and turned away, leaving the twins with a splinter of truth in a sea of lies. Voss returned, pocketing his phone, his sneer back in place. "Process them," he barked, striding toward the exit. "No bail, no visitors, they're mine now." The door swung shut behind him, the sound final as a coffin lid. Jamal and Jada sat frozen, the weight of his words sinking in. The matches, the video, the witnesses, all fake, all crafted by a man with power and hate in equal measure. The precinct hummed on, indifferent, as the twins faced their first night in a world that didn't want them free. Tanya's screams still rang in their ears, a lifeline severed. The cops shuffled papers, joking about cleaning up the neighborhood, their voices a dull roar over the twins' racing thoughts. Jamal traced the cuff's edge with a trembling finger, plotting impossible escapes. Jada stared at the folder, memorizing every lie, vowing to unravel it. They were kids, not criminals, but Voss had turned the law into a noose. And that muttered hint, personal stake, gnawed at them, a clue to why this judge wanted them buried. The night stretched. Ahead, dark and endless, their innocence a flickering flame in a storm they didn't understand. Tanya Lewis barely slept, her eyes bloodshot from crying and scheming, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a stained sweatshirt as she sat hunched over a rickety kitchen table in her sister's cramped Decatur apartment. The clock blinked 3:17, its red glow mocking her exhaustion. She'd spent every dime of her savings, $812, scraped from overtime and skipped meals, to hire attorney Calvin Reese. He wasn't some polished suit from downtown Atlanta. He was a wiry 30-something with a chipped front tooth and a reputation for taking cases the big firms wouldn't touch. His office smelled of mildew and cheap cologne, but his handshake was firm, and his voice carried a fire that made Tanya believe he could help. Reese worked fast, fueled by black coffee and a gnawing sense of right. By sunrise, he'd tracked down the precinct's evidence log, a dog-eared ledger smudged with fingerprints. The charred matches Judge Harlan Voss had waved like a trophy, no prints, not a single ridge tying them to Jamal or Jada. Reese's pulse quickened as he photocopied the page, the machine's hum drowning out his muttered curses. "Sloppy," he said to himself, grinning despite the stakes. "Too sloppy." He dug deeper, cross-checking timestamps. The fire started at 6:48, per the fire chief's report, but the twins were on the stoop with Tanya at 6:45, a fact her co-worker confirmed after seeing them wave through her car window. The math didn't lie. Voss's case was a house of cards, and Reese was ready to blow it down. Court convened at 9, the room a suffocating box of polished wood and stale air, 30 miles south of Atlanta in a squat Fulton County building. Jamal and Jada shuffled in, orange jumpsuits swallowing their small frames, the fabric scratching their skin raw. Their wrists ached from cuffs swapped for looser ones, a small mercy from a bailiff who avoided their eyes. Tanya sat in the front row, her sister's borrowed jacket tight across her shoulders, clutching a crumpled tissue. Reese strode to the podium, his scuffed loafers squeaking, a stack of papers under his arm. Voss loomed behind the bench, his Confederate pin winking under fluorescent lights, his sneer fixed as he glared at the twins. The gallery buzzed with a dozen locals, some whispering, others staring with cold judgment. Reese didn't waste time. "Your Honor," he began, voice sharp as a blade, "this case is a sham built on lies." He slapped the evidence log onto the table, the thud echoing. "These matches, no prints, not Jamal's, not Jada's, planted, plain and simple." He held up the fire report next, pointing to the timeline. "Fire starts at 6:48. My clients were with their mother at 6:45, witnessed by a nurse driving by. This isn't evidence, it's fraud." Jamal's chest swelled, a flicker of hope warming his numb fingers. Jada's lips parted, breath catching as she gripped, her brother's arm through the gap between their seats. Could this end the nightmare? The room stirred, murmurs rippling like wind through dry grass. A woman in a floral dress gasped, clutching her purse. Two men in trucker hats exchanged skeptical looks, one muttering, "Kids lie." Voss's face darkened, his knuckles whitening on the gavel, but Reese pressed on. "The prosecution's video?" Blurry figures in hoodies, no faces, just sneakers anyone could buy. "This is a frame-up, and I demand these charges be dropped now." Tanya leapt up, unable to stay silent. "That's right, my babies didn't do this." Her voice cracked, raw with desperation, drawing a glare from Voss that could have curdled milk. Jamal dared to believe, his heart thudding against his ribs. Jada's eyes shone, imagining their stoop again, rebuilt, safe. Reese stood tall, chest puffed, waiting for justice to land. Voss leaned forward, his chair creaking, eyes narrowing to slits. "Bold claims, counselor," he rasped, voice low, "and venomous. But I've heard enough." He raised the gavel, the wood gleaming, and paused, letting silence choke the room. Then he slammed it down, a crack like thunder. "Court's adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow." No ruling, no dismissal, just a smirk as he rose, robes swishing, and exited through a side door. Tanya sank back, tissue shredding in her fists. "What's he playing at?" she whispered to Reese, who shook his head, jaw tight. stalling. He's rattled, but he's not done. Jamal and Jada were led back to their cells, the brief taste of freedom souring as steel bars clanged shut. The jail, a grey slab on Atlanta's outskirts, smelled of bleach and despair, its walls stained with years of neglect. They sat on thin cots 5 feet apart, separated by a rusted grate, the jumpsuits itching worse now, hope slipping like sand through their fingers. Night fell, a sliver of moonlight cutting through a high window, painting their faces in pale streaks. At 11 the air shifted, thick with menace. Footsteps echoed outside, not the guards' lazy shuffle, but something sharper, urgent. A brick smashed through the barred window above Jamal's cot, glass shattering, the jagged edge slicing his cheek. Blood trickled warm down his face as he scrambled back, shouting, "Jada!" She jumped up, eyes wide, as another brick crashed through her window, missing her head by inches. Shouts erupted outside, a chorus of hate. Burners, black, trash. Shadows danced in the floodlights, figures in hoods circling the jail, their chants a guttural roar. "Teach 'em a lesson." Jamal pressed against the wall, heart hammering, the cut stinging as he wiped it with his sleeve. Jada crouched low, glass crunching under her sneakers, her breath fast and shallow. A Molotov cocktail sailed through. Jamal's broken window, exploding against the grate in a bloom of fire. Flames licked the bars, heat searing his skin, smoke choking his lungs. "Help!" he yelled, voice hoarse, but the guard's post stayed silent, radios off. Jada coughed, eyes streaming, pounding the wall. "They're gonna kill us!" The mob grew louder, boots stomping, a dozen voices now, 20, 30, a tide of rage, fueled by lies. Reese's office, a mile away, lit up the night with its own disaster. He'd parked his beat-up sedan out front, a rusting relic he'd driven since law school. At 11:15, a boom shook the street, windows rattling as the car erupted in a fireball. Metal twisted, tires melted, the blast hurling shards across the lot. Reese ran out, shirt untucked, staring at the wreckage, his files still inside, curling to ash. Neighbors peeked from curtains, but no sirens came, no help, just the crackle of flames and the distant echo of the mob's chants. His phone buzzed. A blocked number and a gravelly voice hissed, "Back off, lawyer man." Back at the jail, the twins huddled low, smoke thickening, the fire dying against the concrete but leaving a scorched warning. The mob's roar peaked, then faded as headlights swept the yard, a lone patrol car finally rolling in. Hooded figures, scattered into the dark, leaving broken bottles and hate scrawled in spray paint. No peace for burners. Jamal's cheek throbbed, blood crusting, his hope gutted. Jada's hands shook, glass dust coating her braids, her mind racing. Who sent them? Why wouldn't Voss let go? A guard sauntered in at midnight, whistling, kicking glass aside like it was confetti. "Rough night, huh?" he said, smirking, tossing them stale bread through the slots. No questions, no report, just a shrug as he walked off. Jamal tore the bread, handing half to Jada, their fingers brushing through the grate. "Reese was right," he whispered, voice trembling. "We're close." Jada nodded, chewing slowly, tasting ash. "Too close," she said, eyes hard. "That's why they're scared." The mob's attack left scars beyond the cut on Jamal's face, beyond the burns on the bars. Evidence had cleared them, a wind snatched away by violence orchestrated from above. A brick lay near Jada's cot, its edge smeared with dirt, a note taped tight. "Voss says hi." She ripped it off, showing Jamal, their breath catching in unison. The judge wasn't just stalling, he was striking back, his reach a noose tightening. Around their necks, what did he want? How far would he go? Think Reese should have seen this coming. Comment number 1 if you think he underestimated Voss's hate, or number 2 if you believe he's their only shot. Smash that like button if you're raging at this injustice, and subscribe because tomorrow's twist will flip. Everything you thought you knew. Was that mob random, or did Voss pull strings bigger than we've seen? Stick around to find out what's next for Jamal and Jada. The jail's air hung heavy with smoke and the sour tang of fear, the charred bars still warm from the mob's Molotov cocktail hours before. Jamal Lewis pressed a torn strip of his jumpsuit against the gash on his cheek, the blood crusting into her jagged line. 9 years old, his small frame shivered on the thin cot, orange fabric clinging to his sweat-soaked skin. Across the rusted grate, Jada sat cross-legged, glass dust sparkling in her braids under the dim cell light, her eyes locked on the brick with Voss's note. Voss says hi. Her fingers traced its edge, mind churning through the hate that wouldn't let them breathe. The guards' midnight bread lay uneaten, moulding in the corner, a taunt they refused to touch. Footsteps broke the silence, not the guards' lazy shuffle, but a quick, uneven tap. Attorney Calvin Reese slipped into the hall at 2:30, his scuffed loafers silent on the concrete, a ring of pilfered keys jangling in his trembling hand. His chipped tooth flashed in a nervous grin as he crouched by Jamal's cell, sweat beading on his brow. "We're getting out," he whispered, voice low but firm. "Shift change is chaos. Now's our shot." Jamal's heart leapt, a wild thud against his ribs as he scrambled up, sneakers squeaking. Jada pressed against the grate, breath fast. "You sure?" she asked, voice a thread of hope and doubt. Reese nodded, unlocking Jamal's door first, the hinges groaning like a wounded animal. "Voss wants you buried. Court's a trap. We move now or never." The lock clicked, and Jamal stumbled out, legs wobbly from hours of sitting. Reese darted to Jada's cell, fumbling the key until it turned, her door swinging wide. She leapt free, grabbing Jamal's hand, their fingers locking tight, a lifeline in the dark. The jail buzzed faintly, guards laughing in a distant break room, oblivious or paid off. Reese led them down a shadowed corridor, past flickering bulbs and peeling paint, his breath ragged but determined. They hit the back exit, a rusted slab of steel half hidden by overflowing trash bins. Reese shoved it open, cool night air rushing, in thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt. Outside, Atlanta's outskirts sprawled under a moonless sky, the jail's floodlights casting long, jagged shadows. "My car's 2 blocks east," Reese hissed, pulling them into a sprint. Jamal's lungs burned, the cut on his cheek stinging as wind whipped past. Jada's braids bounced, her sneakers pounding the cracked pavement, every step a scream of freedom they hadn't tasted in days. Sirens wailed faintly, miles off, a threat not yet awake. Reese's sedan waited under a sagging oak, its dented hood glinting in a street lamp's weak glow. They piled in, Jamal and Jada in the back, Reese at the wheel, keys shaking as he jammed them into the ignition. The engine sputtered, then roared, tires screeching as he peeled out, weaving through Decatur's quiet streets. "Safe house," he said, eyes flicking to the rear view. "Old client's place, off the grid." Jamal sank into the torn upholstery, Jada's hand still in his, their breath sinking as the jail shrank behind them. Could this hold? Was Voss really blind for once? The safe house loomed 20 minutes later, a weathered bungalow on a dead-end road, its paint peeling like old skin, windows boarded with warped plywood. Reese killed the engine, ushering them inside through a creaking back door. The air smelled of dust and mothballs, a sagging couch in the corner, their only comfort. Jamal collapsed onto it, springs groaning under his weight, the orange jumpsuit itching worse now, sticky with sweat. Jada dropped beside him, knees pulled up, her eyes scanning the dim room. A bare bulb swaying overhead, a cracked sink in the corner, shadows pooling in every crevice. Reese locked the door, sliding a chair under the knob. "Rest," he said, voice tight. "We plan at dawn." Relief washed over them, fragile but real. Jamal's shoulders slumped, the cut on his cheek throbbing less, a dull ache now. Jada exhaled, leaning into him, their shared warmth a shield against the night. Reese paced near the window, peeking through a slit in the boards, his silhouette, tense but steady. Hours ticked by, the bungalow silent save for crickets outside, a false peace settling in. At 5, a soft knock rattled the door, 3 gentle taps. Reese froze, hand on his pocket knife, then relaxed. "It's Clara," he said, unlocking it. "She's good people." Miss Clara stepped in, a stout woman in her 60s, her grey hair twisted into a tight bun, a faded shawl draped over her shoulders. She carried a plastic bag, steam rising from foil containers inside, her face creased with worry. Jamal and Jada knew her from Edgewood, the neighbor who'd baked them oatmeal cookies last summer, who'd waved from her porch as they rode bikes. "Oh, babies," she said, voice trembling, setting the bag on a wobbly table. "When I heard I had to come." Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she hugged them, her grip fierce and warm. "You don't deserve this." Jamal's stomach growled, the smell of fried chicken and cornbread cutting through his days. Jada managed a small smile, the first since the fire, accepting a plate Clara pressed into her hands. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick. Clara nodded, wiping her face with a handkerchief, her hands shaking. "Eat up. You need strength." Reese watched, leaning against the wall, his knife back in his pocket. "She's been checking on Tanya," he said. "Brought word she's safe with her sister." The twins ate slowly, savoring each bite, the food grounding them, a taste of home they'd thought lost. For an hour, the bungalow felt like a sanctuary, the outside world muted by boarded windows, and Clara's soft humming as she tidied the high table. Jamal's eyelids drooped, Jada's head nodding against his shoulder, the exhaustion of days crashing down. Reese sat by the door, scribbling notes on a napkin, plotting their next move. Clara slipped out at 6, promising to return with clothes, her footsteps fading into the dawn. The twins drifted into a shallow sleep, dreams flickering with flames and cuffs, but lighter now, edged with hope. At 7, the world shattered. Floodlights blazed through the cracks, bathing the room in harsh white. Boots thundered outside. A dozen, then more, a SWAT team's roar splintering the quiet. "Police, open up!" a voice bellowed, fists pounding the door. Reese leapt up, knife out, eyes wild. "How'd they find us?" he hissed, shoving the chair aside. The door buckled, wood splintering as a battering ram slammed it open. Black-clad figures stormed in, rifles raised, red dots dancing on the twins' chests. Jamal jolted awake, scrambling back, Jada clutching his arm, their screams lost in the chaos. "Hands up now," a masked officer barked, shoving Reese to the floor, his knife skittering away. Jamal and Jada raised trembling hands, hearts pounding, the safe house's peace, a lie, ripped apart. Clara stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the lights, her shawl slipping as she pocketed a thick wad of cash. "Voss pays better," she muttered, voice flat, eyes avoiding theirs. Tanya's cookies, her tears all a mask. The twins' stomachs dropped, betrayal cutting deeper than any cuff. Officers yanked them up, boots grinding glass into the floor, recapturing them with brutal efficiency. Blood roared in Jamal's ears as a fist slammed his ribs, doubling him over, air fleeing his lungs. Jada kicked, her sneaker catching a shin, earning a backhand that split her lip, copper flooding her mouth. They dragged her by the braids, her scalp screaming, while Jamal's arms twisted behind him, cuffs snapping tight. Dumped back into cells at the jail, now reeking of fresh bleach, they sprawled on the concrete, bruised and bleeding. Clara's cash disappeared into a cop's glove, her betrayal a transaction complete. The guard from last night smirked, tossing, them water bottles that rolled out of reach. "Welcome home, burners," Jamal coughed, ribs aching, wiping blood from his chin with a torn sleeve. Jada pressed her swollen lip, tears mixing with the taste, her glare fixed on the bars. "She sold us," she rasped, voice shaking with rage. Reese hauled off separately, yelled down the hall, "I'll get you out," before a door slammed, silencing him. The twins sat, beaten but alive, their brief freedom a cruel tease. Clara's voice echoed in Jada's head. "Voss pays better," a wound that wouldn't close. A new guard sauntered by, twirling his baton, pausing at Jamal's cell. "Rough day, huh?" he said, then leaned close, breath sour. "Clara sang when Voss threatened her grandkids. He don't play." He walked off, whistling, leaving the twins with a truth that sank like lead. Voss's reach wasn't just power. It was terror, bending even the kindest hearts. Jamal punched the wall, knuckles splitting, a howl trapped in his throat. Jada hugged her knees, plotting through the pain. Escape had failed. Trust was ash, but Voss's game was clearer now. How much deeper did his hate run? Morning broke over Atlanta with a grey haze, the jail's concrete walls cold against Jamal Lewis's bruised ribs as he slumped on his cot, the gash on his cheek scabbing into a rough crescent. 9 years old, his orange jumpsuit hung loose, stained with sweat and blood from the SWAT raid hours before. Jada sat across the rusted grate, her swollen lip throbbing, glass dust still clinging to her braids like a cruel glitter. The cell block echoed with distant clangs, and the guards whistling, a mocking tune that grated on their raw nerves. Clara's betrayal burned fresh, her whispered, "Voss pays better," a knife twisting in their guts. They hadn't slept. Eyes, hollow minds racing through the wreckage of their escape. At 7 sharp, the guard rolled a dented TV cart between their cells, its wheels squeaking on the bleach-scrubbed floor. "Breakfast show?" he sneered, plugging it in, the screen flickering to life with a local news jingle. The anchor, a woman with stiff blonde hair and a plastic smile, stared into the camera. Breaking news. Shocking confession from Atlanta's youngest felons. Jamal's stomach dropped, a sick lurch as the screen cut to grainy footage. 2 small figures, faces blurred, voices warped into eerie echoes, stood in a dim room. "We burned it," the boy's voice croaked, mechanical and wrong. "Wanted to see it blaze," the girl added, her tone flat, lifeless. Red sneakers flashed, matching theirs, the only clear detail. Jada's breath caught, a sharp gasp as she gripped the bars, knuckles paling. "That's not us," she hissed, voice trembling with fury. Jamal stared, fists clenching, the video. Looping. "We burned it. Wanted to see it blaze." The anchor returned, eyes gleaming with fake concern. Twin siblings Jamal and Jada Lewis, just 9 years old, admit to torching their family home in Edgewood. Judge Harlan Voss calls it a tragic escalation of youth crime. The screen flashed Voss's face, his Confederate pin glinting, his sneer smug. "Justice prevails," he said, voice dripping oil. "These kids are a menace. Atlanta's safer with them locked up." The guard chuckled, kicking the cart. "Stars now, huh?" He sauntered off, leaving the TV blaring. Outside, the city erupted. Horns blared, voices shouted, a protest swelling in downtown streets. Jamal peeked through his cell's slit window, bars framing a chaos unfolding below. Picket signs waving, "Burners out!" scrawled in red paint. Crowds chanting, "Lock 'em up!" Spray paint streaked Tanya's charred lot, 2 blocks away, fresh letters screaming, "No mercy for black trash." Jada's nails dug into her palms, blood welling in tiny crescents. "They believe it," she whispered, voice cracking. "Everyone." Tanya Lewis saw it too, huddled in her sister's Decatur apartment, the TV flickering on a chipped stand. Her leg ached from the escape's aftermath, a bruise purpling her shin where Clara's betrayal had landed them back in hell. She smashed. The remote against the couch, plastic cracking, the mute button jamming as the anchor's silent lips kept moving. Her twins' school photos flashed, gap-toothed smiles from last fall, now captioned, "Confessed arsonists." Her chest tightened. Breath shallow, rage boiling over. These were her babies, the ones who'd drawn her Mother's Day cards with crayons, who'd cried over a squashed ladybug. Monsters? No. Victims. She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking as she dialed her sister, Keisha, voice a raw scrape. "There." "Line key, Voss faked it, I need help." Keisha, a hairdresser with a temper to match, didn't hesitate. "I'll round up the crew, we fight this." By noon, Tanya stood on a milk crate in Edgewood's community park, 3 miles from the jail, megaphone crackling in her grip. 50 neighbors gathered, faces a mix of doubt and fury. Mr. Jackson from the barber shop, Ms. Lena who ran the bodega, kids from the twins' school clutching backpacks. "My kids didn't do this," Tanya shouted, voice hoarse but fierce. "Voss framed them. You know Jamal and Jada, you've seen them grow, they're innocent." The crowd stirred, some nodding, others crossing arms. Mr. Jackson stepped up, his cane tapping the grass. "I saw him that day, waving from the stoop. No matches, no fire. This stinks." Ms. Lena waved a fist, her apron flapping. "Voss hates us, always has, I believe Tanya." Cheers rose, ragged but growing, a spark of resistance igniting. Tanya's eyes burned, tears held back by sheer will. "We won't let him win!" she roared, megaphone screeching feedback. "Spread." The word, "demand the truth." Phones lit up, texts flying, a hashtag blooming. One, free the Lewis twins. Back at the jail, Jamal and Jada heard faint echoes through the walls, a murmur of hope they couldn't place. The TV looped the fake confession, each replay a lash across their spirits. Jamal punched his cot, springs groaning, his knuckles already split from last night's rage. "Mum's out there," he said, voice low, clinging to the sound. Jada nodded, lips stinging as she pressed it, tasting blood. "She'll fight, she always does." But the city's hate drowned that flicker. Its roar seeping through the bars, a tide turning against them. By dusk, Atlanta's streets pulsed with fury. Protests clogged Peachtree Road. 100 strong now, signs sharper. "Burn them back, and Voss speaks truth." Tanya's rally grew too, 200 in the park, chanting her kids' names, a fragile counterweight. She paced the grass, megaphone down, rallying more by sheer presence. Her scrubs swapped for a borrowed jacket, hair wild. Keisha handed out flyers, ink smudging her fingers, her voice booming, "We know the real criminals." The twins' faces stared from every sheet, innocent eyes against Voss's lies. Then it struck. A brick sailed from the shadows, no warning, no sound, but the whistle of air. It smashed Tanya's windshield as she climbed into Keisha's car. Glass exploding inward, shards slicing her cheek. Blood ran hot down her jaw, dripping onto her lap as she gasped, hands flying to her face. Keisha screamed, "Tanya!" diving to shield her, but the crowd scattered, panic ripping through. A man in a trucker hat laughed from across the street, tossing another stone that cracked the hood. "That's for your brats," he yelled, voice thick with venom, disappearing into the dusk. Tanya slumped against the seat, blood staining her jacket, the cut deep enough to need stitches, but not her focus. "They're scared," she rasped, wiping her face with a trembling hand smearing red. "Voss is scared." Keisha gripped the wheel, knuckles white, engine roaring as she peeled out, tires spitting gravel. "He's turning the city into a weapon," she said, voice shaking. "We need more than rallies." Tanya nodded, pain sharpening her resolve, the flyer in her lap crumpled but defiant. Her kids were caged, the world against them, and now her blood stained the fight. Inside the jail, the guard flipped the TV off at 8, plunging the cells into silence, the fake confession's echo lingering like a ghost. Jamal traced the scab on his cheek, mind replaying the blurred figures, the warped voices. "How'd he fake it?" he muttered, fists tight. Jada stared at the ceiling, concrete cracked above her, piecing it together. "He's got power, tech, people." Her swollen lip pulsed, a reminder of Clara's sellout, but this was bigger, a city-wide noose. The faint chant of "Free the Twins" drifted in, a lifeline too thin to grasp. The news didn't show the glitch, but Reese had seen it, locked in his own cell 2 floors up, replaying the broadcast in his mind. A split-second flicker, Voss's. Reflection in a window behind the confessing figures, missed by the anchor, the guards, the mob. His fists clenched, nails digging into his palms, a plan forming through the haze of his beating. "Got you," he whispered, voice lost in the jail's hum. Jamal and Jada didn't know, couldn't see, but the tide was shifting, even as it crashed against them. Tanya's blood marked the night, a wound Voss didn't expect. Her rally held, battered but alive, 200 strong now, 300. Flyers littering streets. Atlanta split, hate versus hope, and Voss's video fueled the fire he wanted, not the one brewing against him. Jamal and Jada sat in their cells, bruised, betrayed, but unbroken. The city's roar a double-edged blade. What drove Voss to this? How much more could he twist? Should Tanya keep rallying despite the blood? Comment number 1 if you think she's the twins' real hero, or number 2 if she's risking too much. Hit that like button if Voss's lies make your blood boil, and subscribe, because tomorrow's courtroom showdown will rip this wide open. Can Reese turn that glitch end to their salvation, or will Voss bury them deeper? Stay tuned to see who breaks first. The Fulton County courtroom simmered under a haze of dust and tension, 30 miles south of Atlanta, its wooden benches creaking as spectators packed in tight, their whispers a low buzz against the peeling walls. Jamal Lewis sat rigid beside Jada, their orange jumpsuits swapped for ill-fitting grey sweats, courtesy of a sympathetic guard who'd muttered, "Look less guilty." 9 years old, Jamal's cheek scab itched under the harsh lights, his ribs still tender from the SWAT beating 2 nights back. Jada's swollen lip pulsed, her braids dusted with glass from the mob's attack, her small hands gripping the table's edge. The air smelled of sweat and old varnish, thick with the weight of a city split by hate. Attorney Calvin Reese stormed in at 9 sharp, his chipped tooth flashing in a grim smile, his scuffed loafers squeaking on the polished floor. A bruise bloomed purple under his left eye, a souvenir from his own cell-block welcome, but his stride was steady, a battered laptop under his arm. Tanya Lewis sat in the front row, her cheek stitched from the brick that sliced her last night, blood crusted on her borrowed jacket. Her sister Keisha flanked her, flyer in hand, eyes burning with defiance. The gallery swelled, 50 strong now, a mix of Tanya's ralliers and Voss's loyalists, trucker hats glaring across at raised fists. Judge Harlan Voss ascended the bench, his black robe rustling, Confederate pin glinting like a taunt. His sneer carved deeper lines into his weathered face, grey hair slicked tight, his gavel a scepter of control. "Order," he rasped, slamming it once, the crack silencing the room. "Counselor Reese, you've got something to say." His voice dripped mockery, eyes narrowing as Reese stepped to the podium, plugging his laptop into a creaky projector. Jamal's pulse quickened, a flicker of hope sparking through his exhaustion. Jada squeezed his hand under the table, her nails digging in a silent plea for this to work. Reese didn't flinch. "Your Honor, this case collapses today," he said, voice cutting through the hum. He clicked the laptop, and the fake confession video flared onto a warped screen, the blurred figures in hoodies muttering, "We burned it, wanted to see it." "Blaze!" The room shifted, murmurs rising, but Reese held up a hand. "Watch this." He zoomed in, frame by frame, until a glitch flickered. Voss's reflection in a window behind the figures, his sneer unmistakable, caught mid-turn. Gasps rippled through the gallery, sharp and sudden, like a match struck in the dark. "That's the judge," Reese said, pointing. "Faking evidence, framing my clients." Jamal's chest swelled, breath hitching as he gripped Jada's hand. Tighter, her eyes wide with a hope they hadn't dared feel since the stoop. Tanya leapt up, stitches pulling, voice raw. "See? He's a liar!" Keisha waved her flyer, shouting, "Free the twins!" The crowd split, half cheering, half growling. A man in a camo jacket spitting, "Rigged nonsense." Voss's face twitched, a vein pulsing at his temple, but he stayed still, gavel hovering. Reese pressed on, slamming the evidence log beside the laptop. "No prints on the matches. Timelines don't match. This is corruption, plain and ugly." Jada's lips parted, a shaky breath escaping as she whispered, "We're gonna win." Jamal nodded, daring to imagine their beds, not cots, their mom's arms, not bars. The gallery buzzed louder, a woman in a blue scarf clapping, a trucker hat guy booing, the room teetering on a knife's edge. Reese stood tall, chest puffed, his bruise a badge of fight. "Dismiss this case now," he demanded, voice booming, "or explain why you're in that video, Judge." The projector hummed, Voss's reflection frozen on screen, a ghost of guilt no one could unsee. Voss leaned forward, chair creaking, his sneer twisting into something feral. "Bold, Counselor," he said, voice low, venomous. "But evidence needs context." He snapped his fingers and the bailiff ushered in 3 figures, each stepping to the witness stand with rehearsed ease. First Officer Pike, the precinct brute, his badge gleaming, uniform crisp. "I saw him," he swore, hand on a Bible. Jamal lit the match. Jada tossed it. 6:45, back window. His eyes flicked to Voss, a wink so quick it might have been a twitch. Jamal's hope curdled, a sick twist in his gut. "Liar," he hissed, too low for the mic, fists balling. Jada's nails bit deeper, her breath fast. "We were on the stoop," she muttered, voice shaking. Next came a landlord, Mr. Grayson, a squat man with a sunburned neck and a plaid shirt, his voice nasal. "They burned my shed last month. Practice run. Little devils laughed about it." He smirked, adjusting his collar, sweat beading on his brow. Tanya shot up. "That's insane. They've never been near your place." The bailiff shoved her down, her stitched cheek hitting the bench, a grunt escaping her lips. The third witness, a wiry teen named Tyrell, shuffled in, hoodie pulled low, avoiding the twins' stares. "I sold 'em a lighter that morning," he mumbled, voice cracking. "Heard 'em plan it. Said they hated the house." Jamal's jaw dropped, a soundless scream trapped in his throat. Jaida's eyes burned, tears held back by rage. "We don't know him," she whispered, voice breaking. Reese spun, pointing at Voss. "This is a circus. These are coached lies. Where's the proof?" He waved the log, the glitch, but Voss's gavel crashed down, 3 sharp bangs silencing the room. "Enough," Voss growled, eyes blazing, his sneer a mask of triumph. "Witnesses outweigh your tricks, counselor. I've heard plenty." He paused, letting the silence choke them, then leaned back. "Jamal and Jada Lewis, guilty of arson, 1st degree. Sentencing tomorrow." The gavel slammed again, a gunshot in their ears, and the courtroom erupted. Tanya screamed, "No!" lunging past Keisha, her stitched cheek bleeding anew as the bailiff tackled her, pinning her arms. "They're kids, you monster!" Her voice shredded, raw and wild as she kicked, sneakers scraping the floor. Jamal collapsed forward, head hitting the table, a sob wrenching free, his scab splitting open, blood trickling anew. Jada crumpled beside him, hands clawing the wood, her swollen lip trembling as she fought to breathe. The gallery split, cheers from Voss's side drowning Tanya's ralliers, a man in a trucker hat yelling, "Burners got what they deserve!" Reese stood frozen, laptop humming, the glitch, still glowing, useless now. "This isn't justice," he muttered, voice lost in the roar, his bruise darkening as he sank into his chair, defeated. The bailiffs hauled Jamal and Jada up, their grey sweat snagging on the table, wrists snapping back into cuffs, tighter, now cutting into their skin. Jamal's legs buckled, a bailiff yanking him straight, his ribs screaming with every step. Jada stumbled, braids swinging, her lip oozing blood as they dragged her out, the courtroom a blur of hate and noise. Tanya's cries followed. "I'll get you out, I swear," until the door slammed, muffling her into silence, leaving the high. Twins in a cold hall marched back to their cells. The jail swallowed them again, the TV cart gone, replaced by a fresh stench of bleach and despair. Jamal sank onto his cot, blood dripping from his cheek, staining the thin mattress red. Jada slid down her wool, knees up, glass dust falling as she shook, her swollen lip a throbbing reminder of their fall. "We were so close," Jamal rasped, voice hollow, fists pounding the concrete until his knuckles bled anew. Jada stared at the rusted grate, eyes hard despite the tears. "He planned it," she said, voice steadying. Every word. The guard sauntered by, twirling his baton, pausing to smirk. "Tough break, huh?" he said, then leaned close, breath sour. "That juror in the back," winked at Voss. "Whole game's his." He walked off, whistling, leaving the twins with a shard of truth that cut deeper than the cuffs. The courtroom win, the glitch, all a mirage, swallowed by a rigged system Voss owned from bench to jury. Jamal's sob echoed, raw and broken, as Jada's mind raced, plotting through the pain. Evidence hadn't saved them. It had baited the trap. Tanya's screams lingered in their ears, a promise fraying against Voss's power. The city's hate pulsed outside, louder now, fed by the guilty verdict, a tide they couldn't swim. Jamal traced the blood on his cot, mind replaying Pike's wink, Grayson's smirk, Tyrell's lie. Jada clenched her fists, glass dust grinding under her nails, vowing to unravel this web. Voss had won this round, but the fight wasn't dead. Not while they breathed. How much deeper did his corruption run? What would he do next? The prison bus rattled over a potholed road 50 miles north of Atlanta, its engine growling like a beast as it hauled Jamal and Jada Lewis into a new hell. 9 years old, their wrists bled under cuffs too tight for their small frames. The E. Grey sweats from court now swapped for adult prison blues, sleeves dragging past their hands. Jamal's cheek scab cracked with every jolt, fresh blood seeping into the stiff collar, his ribs aching from the courtroom bailiff's grip. Jada's swollen lip pulsed, her braids tangled and dull, glass dust gone but the sting of betrayal still sharp. The bus windows, barred and fogged, framed a blur of pine trees and dusk, the air inside thick with diesel fumes and despair. They stumbled off at Carver State Penitentiary, a grey fortress squatting in a muddy clearing, its razor, wire glinting under floodlights. Guards in khaki flanked them, boots squelching in the damp earth, their faces hard and pale. "Move it, burners," one barked, a stocky man with a buzz cut and a scar splitting his brow, shoving Jamal forward. His name tag read, C.O. Hargrove. Jada tripped beside him, her sneaker catching a rock, and another guard, lanky with a tobacco-stained grin, yanked her up by the arm. "Keep up, trash," he spat, his tag flashing C.O. Lyle. The twins' eyes met, a silent vow to endure, their hands brushing before cuffs pulled them apart. Inside, the intake room echoed with clanging steel, the walls slick with condensation, the stench of urine and bleach choking their lungs. Hargrove ripped off their cuffs, leaving red welts, and tossed them striped towels stained yellow. "Shower, then cells," he growled, pointing to a rusted stall. Jamal stepped in first, icy water slamming his skin, washing blood and sweat into a swirling drain. Jada followed, shivering as the spray matted her braids, her lips stinging anew. Lyle leaned against the wall, twirling a baton, smirking. "Black trash burns bright, don't it? Too bad the fire didn't finish you." Jamal's fists clenched under the water, rage boiling, but he kept his head down, rinsing fast. Jada glared through the spray, memorizing Lyle's grin, her mind already plotting. They dried off, the towels rough as sandpaper, and Hargrove shoved them into a cell block, a cavern of steel and screams 50 feet long, tiers of cages stacked 3 high. "Solitary," he said, locking them in separate cells 10 feet apart, concrete boxes 6 by 8, no windows, just a slot for food and a metal slab for a bed. "No meals today. Starve a bit, burners." The door slammed, a hollow boom, and darkness swallowed them, broken only by a flickering bulb overhead. Jamal sank onto the slab, his blues sticking to his damp skin, the cold seeping into his bones. Jada paced her cell, 3 steps wall to wall, her breath fogging in the chill, her lips pain a steady drumbeat. Hours crawled, marked by distant shouts and the drip of a leak somewhere above. Hargrove's voice cut through at midnight, boots clomping as he paused by Jamal's slot. "Heard your Voss's pets," he said, low and mean. "He says make it hurt." A baton scraped the bars, a warning screech. Jada froze, ears straining, catching every word. Voss again, his hate stretching beyond the courtroom, clawing into this pit. She knelt by her slab, fingers tracing its edge, finding a loose screw. Jamal heard the baton too, his mind racing, settling on the spoon from intake, slipped into his sleeve when Hargrove wasn't looking. He worked it free, bending, it against the slab, sharpening the handle into a crude shiv, its edge glinting faintly. "We're not staying," he whispered. Too low for guards, a promise to himself and Jada across the void. By dawn, Jada had the screw out, a tiny tool gripped tight, her knuckles white. She'd overheard a trustee muttering about vents during intake, a whisper of escape routes traded for smokes. She tapped her wall, a soft rhythm Jamal knew from their checkers days, signaling him awake. He tapped back, shiv ready, and they waited, listening as the guard shift changed at 6. Hargrove and Lyle swapping for 2 new faces, slower, lazier. The vent above Jada's slab rattled faintly, a breeze sneaking through, a lifeline she'd mapped in her head, up, left, down to the yard. At 7, the block quieted, breakfast trays clattering elsewhere, their slots empty as promised. Jada climbed her slab, unscrewing the vent cover, her arms trembling but steady, the metal groaning as it gave. Jamal mirrored her, shiv prying, his vent loose, the spoon's edge bending but holding. They crawled in, elbows scraping rusted steel, the air stale and metallic, dust coating their tongues. Jada led, left at a junction, her braids snagging, Jamal behind, his shiv tucked in, his waistband, their breaths loud in the tight space. 20 minutes of filth and sweat, then a drop, a grate to the yard below, rain pelting its bars. They kicked it free, landing in mud 6 feet down, a storm raging overhead, thunder drowning their gasps. Lightning flashed, illuminating the yard. Empty. Guards in towers distracted by the downpour. "Run!" Jada hissed, grabbing Jamal's hand, their blues soaked black, sneakers slipping as they bolted for the fence, a chain-link beast topped with wire. Jamal stabbed his shiv into a pole, bending it enough to squeeze through, Jada first, then him, thorns tearing their skin as they hit the woods beyond. Free for now, rain washing blood and mud into streams at their feet. Sirens wailed, a delayed scream as floodlights swept the trees, guards shouting, "Escapees!" Dogs barked, their howls cutting through the storm. A pack loosed 50 yards back. Jamal's ribs screamed, his shiv lost in the fence, but he ran, Jada pulling him, their lungs burning as branches snapped underfoot. Voss's voice crackled, on a radio snatched by the wind from a tower. "Hunt them down." His hate echoed, a promise of no mercy, the manhunter claw reaching to drag them back. They stumbled deeper, mud caking their legs, the prison a grey smear behind them. A guard's flashlight bobbed 30 yards off, Lyle's voice yelling, "Over here!" as dogs snarled closer, teeth glinting in the rain. Jamal tripped, ankle twisting, Jada hauling him up, her lip bleeding anew from clenching it. They ducked behind a fallen pine, breath held, the beam missing them by inches, Lyle cursing as he passed. The twins crouched, soaked and shaking, freedom a fragile thread, in a storm Voss controlled. Jada's hand tightened on Jamal's, her screw still clutched, a weapon now, her mind racing. "We made it," she whispered, voice fierce. "They won't keep us." Jamal nodded, ankle throbbing, his shiv gone but his will iron. The dogs circled back 50 feet off, noses low, guards shouting coordinates into radios. A dropped phone glinted in the mud. Lyle's, its screen cracked but alive, a call log glowing. Voss, H, at 3 that morning. Jamal snatched it, shoving, hit into his blues, a shard of proof they couldn't yet use. "He's everywhere," he rasped, eyes wide. The manhunt closing in, dogs 20 yards now, their growls a rising tide. They bolted again, rain blinding, woods swallowing them as sirens screamed louder, a chopper's thrum joining the hunt overhead. Jamal's ankle buckled, slowing him, Jada dragging him, her screw raised like a talisman. The prison faded, a distant monster, but Voss's voice lingered, a ghost in the storm, his power unbroken. They'd escaped, a win snatched from torture, but the chase was alive, relentless, racism a chain they couldn't yet snap. How far could they run? What did that phone hold? Did the twins deserve this nightmare just for being born black? Comment. Number 1 if you think Voss's hate proves the system's rotten, or number 2 if you believe their breakout shows they're unstoppable. Smash that like button if you're cheering their guts, and subscribe because tomorrow's reunion will twist everything you expect. Will Tanya find them before Voss's dogs do, or is that phone their real ticket out? Stay locked in to see who falls next. Rain lashed the woods 50 miles north of Atlanta, a relentless curtain soaking Jamal and Jada Lewis as they stumbled through mud and thorns, their prison blues clinging like wet rags. 9 years old, Jamal's ankle throbbed from his twisted sprint, the gash on his cheek oozing fresh blood under the downpour, his breath a ragged wheeze. Jada's swollen lips stung, her braids plastered to her neck, the screw she'd clutched as a weapon now slippery in her fist. Dogs howled 20 yards back, their snarls a jagged rhythm against the storm, guards' shouts fading then surging as flashlights sliced the dark. The chopper's thrum pulsed overhead, its spotlight a blind eye missing them by luck and shadows. They hit a swamp's edge, cypress knees jutting from black water, the stench of rot thick in their lungs. Jamal sank to his knees, mud sucking at his blues, the phone he'd snatched from Lyle heavy in his pocket, its cracked screen dark but alive. Jada crouched beside him, scanning the trees, her screw raised, rain streaking her face. "We can't." "Stop," she hissed, voice sharp over the thunder, pulling him up. His ankle buckled, a groan escaping, but she dragged him forward, their sneakers sloshing through ankle-deep muck, reeds slashing their legs. The dogs closed in, 15 yards, their barks a promise of teeth and chains. A horn blared sudden and close, cutting through the storm's roar. Headlights flared 30 feet ahead. a beat-up hatchback skidding to a stop on a dirt track bordering the swamp. The driver's door flew open, and Tanya Lewis leapt out, her stitched cheek glistening with rain and blood, her borrowed jacket, torn at the sleeve. "Jamal, Jada!" she screamed, voice raw, running toward them, her sneakers sinking in the mire. Jamal's heart lurched, a sob breaking free as he staggered forward, Jada's grip tightening, pulling him to their mum. Tanya dropped to her knees, arms engulfing them, her tears hot against their cold faces, the swamp swallowing her sobs. "My babies," she rasped, hugging them fierce, her stitches pulling as she pressed her wounded cheek to Jamal's forehead, blood smearing his skin. Jada clung back, Screw dropping into the mud, her swollen lip trembling against Tanya's shoulder. "You found us," she whispered, voice cracking, rain washing the words away. Tanya pulled back, hands cupping their faces, her eyes wild with relief and rage. "Keisha tracked the news. Prison break. I knew it was you." She hauled them up, mud caking her scrubs, and shoved them toward the car, her leg limping from the brick's bruise but unyielding. They piled into the hatchback, Jamal and Jada. In the back, Tanya at the wheel, engine coughing as she floored it, tires spinning before catching traction. The swamp blurred past, dogs barking 10 yards off now, their shapes lunging in the rear view, guards' lights fading as she veered onto a gravel road. "Safe spot," she said, voice tight, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Old cabin 10 miles west, Keisha's waiting." Jamal's ankle pulsed, his blues dripping swamp water onto the torn seats, the phone a cold weight against his thigh. Jada wiped her lip, blood mixing with rain, her breath steadying as Tanya's warmth sank in. The cabin emerged from the storm, a sagging shack off a forgotten lane, its tin roof rattling under the deluge, windows shuttered tight. Tanya skidded to a stop, ushering them inside, the door creaking on rusted hinges. The air smelled of mildew and pine, a single lantern flickering on a splintered table, Keisha's silhouette pacing by a cracked stove. "Thank God," Keisha said, rushing over, her braids swinging as she hugged the twins, her hands shaking. "Thought Voss had nabbed you." Tanya locked the door, shoving a chair under the knob, her stitched cheek throbbing as she sank onto a moth-eaten couch, pulling Jamal and Jada close. "We're together," Jamal rasped, ankle propped on a crate, his blues stiffening as they dried, the phone slipping out, glinting in the lantern's glow. Jada grabbed it, screen flaring as she swiped, Voss's call log staring back. Voss H at 3 that morning, a lifeline to his hate. "He's behind it all," she said, voice hard, showing Tanya. Her mum's eyes narrowed, stitches, pulling as she snatched her phone from her pocket, a cracked old model that barely held a charge. "We need help," she said, thumb hovering over a number she hadn't dialed in 10 years, her breath shallow, bitter. "Eric Grant," she muttered, dialing the U.S. Attorney General, their dad, a ghost from before they could walk, who'd left when Jamal was 3, Jada 2, chasing power in D.C. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, each beep a stab in Tanya's chest, then his voice boomed deep and clipped. "Grant." She swallowed, voice shaking. "Eric, it's Tanya. Your kids need you. Jamal and Jada, they're framed, hunted. Voss is killing us." Silence stretched, rain pounding. The roof, then Eric's tone shifted, urgent. "Where are you? I'll move now." Tanya rattled off the cabin's coordinates, her stitched cheek bleeding through as she gripped the twins tighter. Jamal's eyes widened, a flicker of memory. A tall man in a suit, lifting him onto a couch, gone before he knew why. Jada's brow furrowed, no memory, just Tanya's stories of abandonment, now this voice, a stranger promising rescue. "He'll help?" she asked, voice small, screwless now, her lips pain dulling in the reunion's heat. Tanya nodded. "Fierce. He's got power, he'll fix this." Eric's voice crackled through, "FBI's on it, stay put, I'm coming." The line clicked dead. A lifeline dangled, the cabin a fragile shield as the storm raged on. They planned, voices low, the lantern casting long shadows. Keisha stoked the stove, its weak heat battling the damp, while Tanya mapped their next move. Eric's promise a spark in the dark. Jamal's ankles swelled, his blues chafing, but he leaned in, phone on the table, Voss's call log a weapon they'd wield. Jada traced its edge, mind racing, her lips blood crusting as she spoke. He's gotta clear us, get Voss. Tanya squeezed her hand, stitched cheek glistening, a warrior's wound. He will. We'll win. At 9, the world exploded. A blast tore through the cabin's back wall, wood splintering, flames blooming in a roar that swallowed their screams. The concussion flung Jamal off the couch, his ankle cracking as he hit the floor, ears ringing, blood streaming from his reopened cheek. Jada crashed into the table, lantern shattering, fire licking her blues as she rolled free. Her lips splitting wider, copper flooding her mouth. Tanya flew forward, leg mangling under a fallen beam, her stitched cheek slamming the ground, blood pooling fast. Keisha sprawled near the stove, unconscious, smoke choking the air as Voss's hired thugs laughed outside, silhouettes in the blaze. "Thought you'd run?" one shouted, voice gravelly, tossing another explosive, a grenade that bounced once, twice, bursting near the door, chair and knob vaporizing in a flash. Jamal crawled, ankle screaming, dragging Jada toward Tanya, her leg pinned, her groans a knife in his chest. "Mom!" he yelled, voice lost in the fire's roar, hands clawing. At the beam, blood slicking his grip. Jada yanked, her blues smoldering, her screw gone, strength fading as smoke seared her lungs. Tanya pushed them back, eyes wild. "Go! I'm stuck!" she rasped, blood bubbling from her cheek, leg twisted at a sick angle. The thugs circled, 6 shadows in the rain, their laughter a chorus of hate, one bragging, "Voss owns the feds!" As he lobbed a Molotov, glass shattering, fire racing up the walls. Jamal's vision blurred, smoke and blood, his ankle useless as he pulled Jada. Toward a shattered window, the only way out. She resisted, clawing back for Tanya, no. Her voice shredding, but Jamal shoved her through, glass cutting their arms, landing in mud as the cabin burned, a pyre swallowing their mom's cries. Keisha stirred, crawling too late, flames claiming her silhouette. They staggered into the swamp, Jamal limping, Jada sobbing, her lip gushing, blues charred. The phone lost in the wreckage, Eric's line dead in their ears. The blast's echo faded, replaced by the thugs' boots splashing closer, their taunter whip. "Voss ain't done!" Jamal's ankle gave, dropping him into the muck, Jada hauling him up, her strength a thread against the chaos. The cabin collapsed, a fireball lighting the night, Tanya's fate a scream they couldn't unhear. Freedom burned, reunion ash, Voss's hate a bomb that broke them again. What had Eric walked into? How much more could they lose? Dawn broke over Atlanta's swampy outskirts, a pale smear of light filtering through the cypress trees as Jamal and Jada Lewis huddled in the mud, their prison blues charred and soaked, the cabin's fireball still searing their eyes. 9 years. Old Jamal's ankle swelled into a purple knot, his cheeks gash weeping blood into the muck, every breath a stab in his bruised ribs. Jada's swollen lip oozed, her braids singed at the ends, her arms scratched raw from the window's glass, her lungs burning with smoke and grief. Tanya's trapped screams echoed in their heads, the thug's laughter a whip that wouldn't fade, Voss's voice on the wind. "Hunt them down?" They crawled behind a rotting log, rain easing to a drizzle, the swamp's stink of decay thick in their noses. Jamal clutched his side, ankle useless, his blues stiff with mud and blood. The phone lost in the blast, its call log to Voss a ghost now. Jada pressed her back to the wood, eyes darting, her screw gone, hands trembling as she wiped her lip, blood smearing her knuckles. Dogs barked a mile off, faint but closing, the chopper's thrum a distant pulse, Voss's manhunt alive despite. The dawn. "Mom," Jamal rasped, voice breaking, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. Jada gripped his shoulder, her own tears held back by rage. "She's strong. We keep going." A new sound cut the swamp's hum, sharp and urgent, tires crunching gravel, doors slamming, voices barking orders. Black SUVs roared into view, 5 strong 50 yards west on a muddy track, their engines growling as agents in dark vests spilled out, rifles raised. Eric Grant stepped from the lead vehicle, a towering figure in a crisp navy suit, his graying hair cropped tight, his jaw set like stone. U.S. Attorney General, their dad, unseen for 6 years, his voice booming over the chaos. FBI, Secure. At the area, find my kids. Jamal's breath hitched, a memory flashing. That suit lifting him once, now here, real. Jada's eyes widened. No memory, just shock. Her lip throbbing as she whispered, "He came." Agents fanned out, boots splashing, radios crackling, their beams slicing the swamp. One spotted the twins, a woman with a buzz cut and a steady gaze, her vest flashing FBI in yellow. "Over here!" she shouted, kneeling beside them, her hands gentle but firm as she checked Jamal's ankle, Jada's cuts. "You're safe now," she said, voice low, pulling them toward Eric. He strode over, rain streaking his suit, his eyes locking on theirs, a mix of relief and guilt softening his hard lines. "Jamal. Jada," he said, voice thick, dropping. To one knee, hands hovering, unsure. "I'm here." Jamal flinched, ankle screaming, his cheeks blood dripping as he stared at this stranger who'd left. Jada's fists balled, lip pulsing, her glare cutting through the drizzle. "Where were you?" she rasped, voice raw. Years of absence, a wound Voss had widened. Eric's face tightened, rain pooling in his collar. "I failed you, but I'm fixing it now." He stood, barking to the agents, "Get them to the courthouse. We end this today." Medics rushed in, wrapping Jamal's ankle, bandaging Jada's lip, their blues swapped for dry blankets, the swamp fading as SUVs sped south, Atlanta's skyline looming. By noon, Fulton County Courthouse trembled under Eric's storm. 30 miles from the city's heart, its halls packed with agents and reporters, the air buzzing with static and sweat. Jamal and Jada sat in a holding room, ankle-braced, lip-patched, their blankets tight around them, the prison blues gone but the chill lingering. Eric burst in, warrants in hand, his suit wrinkled but unbowed, Reese at his side, bruised but fierce, his chipped tooth glinting. "Voss's reign's over," Eric said, voice a hammer, slamming papers onto a table. "Evidence logs, witness recantations, that glitch, you're cleared." Reese nodded, laptop open, the glitch video cued, Voss's reflection a noose tightening. "Tyrell flipped," he said, voice steady. "Admitted Voss paid him. Grayson's crumbling too." Jamal's chest loosened, a breath he'd held since the stoop escaping, his ankle's pain dulling in the hope. Jada's eyes shone, lips stinging less, her hands unclenching as she gripped the blanket. "Free?" she whispered, voice trembling, daring to believe. Eric knelt again, closer now, his hand brushing Jamal's shoulder, Jada's arm. "Free, I swear it." Court convened at 1, the room a pressure cooker, 50 spectators swelling to 80, Tanya's ralliers outnumbering Voss's loyalists now, their chants seeping through the walls. Justice for the twins. Voss sat at the bench, Confederate pin dull under the lights, his sneer faltering as Eric strode in, agents flanking him, warrants fanned like a deck of aces. "Judge Harlan Voss," Eric boomed, voice shaking the wood, "you're under investigation for evidence tampering, coercion, and abuse of power. Step down." He slapped the warrants down, the glitch video playing on a screen, Voss's face clear, undeniable. The gallery erupted, cheers drowning boos, a woman in a red scarf screaming, "Got him!" Voss's gavel hovered, then fell limp, his eyes darting, cornered. "This is a farce," he rasped, voice thin, but Eric cut him off, tossing the recantations. "Tyrell's signed confession landing last. You framed my kids, it's over." Jamal and Jada stood behind, blankets slipping, their faces a mirror of shock and triumph, the courtroom's roar a balm to their wounds. Voss slumped, hands trembling, the pin a relic of a crumbling throne. By 3 they walked free, air crisp outside the courthouse, Atlanta's streets quieter, the ralliers' cheers a tide lifting them. Jamal limped, ankle-braced, his cheeks, scab hidden by a bandage, Jada's lip patched, her braids swinging as she breathed deep, tasting freedom. Eric guided them to an SUV, his suit soaked from the swamp, his voice soft now. "You're safe. We'll rebuild." Tanya's absence ached, her fate unknown, but this win held them, a fragile shield against the night. Dusk fell and hell broke loose. A safe house loomed, a brick box 10 miles east, agents posted at every corner, its windows dark, secure. Jamal and Jada collapsed on a couch, blankets swapped for hoodies. their breath sinking as Eric planned with Reese in the kitchen, voices low over coffee. At 6, shouts shattered the calm, a roar from the street, headlights flaring through, blinds. A lynch mob surged, 50 strong, white hoods glowing in the twilight, torches spitting flame, voices howling, "No black wins here!" Rocks smashed windows, glass raining, a Molotov bursting against the door, fire licking up the frame. Eric drew a pistol, firing warning shots, his suit tearing as he shoved the twins behind a wall, their hoodies snagging on splintered wood. "Stay!" "Down," he yelled, voice cracking, agents returning fire, bullets pinging off brick. 2 fell, vests pierced, blood pooling on the floor, their radios silent as the mob pressed in. 100 now, their chants a wall of hate. Jamal's ankle buckled, his cheeks bandage peeling as he crawled, Joda pulling him, her lips patch gone, blood trickling anew. "They won't stop," she gasped, eyes wild, the safe house a trap Voss had sprung. Gunfire roared, agents, thinning, the mob's torches a sea of fire closing in, their screams drowning Eric's orders. He shot again, clipping a hooded arm, but they surged, a brick smashing his shoulder, his gun skittering away. "Out the back!" he shouted, hauling. The twins up, their hoodies smoking as flames licked the walls, the safe house buckling. They stumbled into woods, 10 yards, 20. The mob's roar chasing, agents' bodies left behind. A sacrifice Voss demanded. Jamal's ankle gave, mud swallowing his sneaker, Jada dragging him, her lip gushing, their breaths ragged as Eric fired over his shoulder, emptying his clip. The mob slowed 50 yards back, their torches flickering, but a leader's mask slipped, revealing a face. Agent Carter, Eric's second, his buzz cut stark under the hood. "Traitor," Eric hissed, voice breaking, shoving the twins deeper into the trees. The safe house a pyre behind them, freedom alive Voss had torched again. They collapsed behind a ridge, Jamal's ankle useless, Jada's lip dripping, Eric's suit shredded, his shoulder bleeding. The mob's chants a distant growl. "He owns the feds," Jamal rasped, echoing the thug's brag, the betrayal a blade in their gut. Jada's eyes hardened, blood staining her hoodie, her mind racing. "We're not done," she said, voice steel. Voss had struck, but they breathed. A fight still alive. How deep did his claws sink? Was Eric's trust his fatal flaw? Comment number 1, if you think he should have seen Carter's betrayal coming, or number 2, if his fight proves he's all in now. Hit that like button if you're stunned by Voss's reach, and subscribe because tomorrow's expose will blow this wide open. Can Eric turn this chaos into a win, or will Voss's mob bury them all? Stick around to see who cracks next. Twilight draped the woods 10 miles east of Atlanta, a shroud of damp pine and shadows swallowing Jamal and Jada Lewis as they crouched behind a muddy ridge, their hoodies torn and singed from the safe house blaze. 9 years old, Jamal's ankle, pulsed in its brace, a swollen mass of purple and pain, his cheeks gash hidden under a peeling bandage, blood crusting his jaw. Jada's swollen lip oozed fresh red, her braids frayed, her arms scratched raw from the mob's glass. Her breath, a shallow rasp against the night's chill. Eric Grant knelt beside them, his navy suit shredded at the shoulder, blood seeping from a brick's blow, his pistol empty, its last shots spent holding off the lynch mob 50 yards back. The safe house burned in the distance, a smouldering ruin, painting the sky orange, the mob's chants fading to a low growl. "No black wins here!" Jamal's chest heaved, his ankle useless, the traitor Carter's face, Eric's trusted fed in a white hood, burning in his mind. Jada's hands shook, blood dripping from her lip onto the mud, her eyes locked on Eric, the dad she barely knew, now their shield. "They're coming," she whispered, voice hoarse, the mob's torches flickering through the trees, a tide of hate Voss had unleashed. Eric's jaw tightened, his graying hair plastered with sweat, his voice a low growl. "Not yet. We move." He hauled them up, Jamal limping, Jada steadying him. Her strength a thread against their collapse, the woods a maze they staggered through, branches clawing their skin. 5 miles south, an FBI safe point loomed, a nondescript motel off a back road, its neon sign buzzing faintly. Eric kicked the door open, room 6, the air stale with cigarette smoke and mildew, a single bulb swaying overhead. He shoved the twins onto a sagging bed, their hoodies dripping mud, and locked the door, his shoulders blood staining the frame. "Rest," he said, voice ragged, pulling a burner phone from his pocket, its screen glowing as he dialed. Jamal sank into the mattress, ankle throbbing, his cheeks bandaged, slipping as he stared at the ceiling, cracks spidering above. Jada, curled beside him, lip stinging, her braids spilling across the pillow, her mind replaying Carter's mask falling, Voss's reach a noose tightening. Eric paced, phone to his ear, barking, "Get me a newsline now, National, I'm going live." An agent's voice crackled back, "CNN's ready, 5 minutes." He slammed a laptop onto a wobbly table, stolen from the safe house, its battery. Low but alive, files from Reese glowing. The glitch video, recantations, Voss's call log screenshot Jamal had lost. At 8, the motel's TV flared, CNN's logo spinning. A breaking news banner. U.S. Attorney General alleges judicial corruption. Eric stood before a webcam, suit torn, blood streaking his collar, his voice a thunderclap shaking the room. "Judge Harlan Voss framed my children, Jamal and Jada Lewis, 9 years old, for arson they didn't commit." He clicked the laptop, the glitch video playing, Voss's reflection stark, his sneer frozen mid-frame. This is him, faking evidence. Here's more. Paid witnesses, tampered logs, a pattern of hate spanning years. He slapped stats on screen. Black kids sentenced 10 times harsher under Voss. A dozen cases flashing, each a wound. Jamal's eyes widened, ankle forgotten, a flicker of pride cutting through his pain, his dad a titan on screen. Jada sat up, lip pulsing, her breath catching as the nation watched, the motel's walls vibrating with Eric's rage. "He bombed their hideout, killed my agents, turned Atlanta against them with lies," he said, voice rising, slamming Tyrell's confession. Down, ink smudged but damning. "Voss is a racist with blood on his hands, and I'm ending him." The anchor cut in, stunned. "Mr. Grant, these are explosive claims." But Eric roared over her. "Truth isn't a claim, it's a fact. My kids are heroes, not burners." Atlanta's streets erupted, the broadcast splitting the city anew. Tanya's ralliers swelling to 500 outside the courthouse, their chants a drumbeat. "Voss must fall." TV screens glowed in bars, homes, shops, the twins' faces, gap-toothed school photos, hailed as victims turned icons. Jamal's chest swelled, a sob held back, his hoodie's mud, a badge now. Jada's lip curled, a half-smile through the pain, her hands unclenching as the nation gasped, phones buzzing with "Hashtag free the Lewis twins," a tide Voss couldn't drown. Then Voss struck, a venomous counterblow at 9. The broadcast flickered, CNN's feed hijacked, a new banner slashing the screen. Attorney General Grant accused of treason. Forged documents scrolled, grainy scans of classified memos. Eric's signature, faked, selling secrets to foreign powers, dates aligning with the twins' case, a conspiracy spun tight. Voss's voice cut in, pre-recorded, oily and calm. "Eric Grant's a traitor, using his kids as pawns to dodge justice. These files prove it. He's no hero, he's a criminal." The anchor returned, flustered. "We're verifying, but there's unprecedented." Eric's face drained, his suit's blood stark against his paling skin, the laptop slamming shut as he roared, "Lies!" Agents burst in, not his, their vests unmarked, pistols drawn, faces cold. "Eric Grant, you're under arrest," one barked, cuffs snapping his wrists, his shoulders blood smearing their gloves. Jamal leapt up, ankle buckling, screaming, "No!" His voice shredding, hands clawing air as they dragged Eric back. Jada lunged, lip gushing, her hoodie snagging on the bed as she kicked. "He's saving us!" But a boot shoved her down, her head cracking the frame, blood pooling fast. The motel room spun, agents hauling Eric out, his suit ripping further, his voice booming, "Protect them!" Before the door slammed, tires screeching as they vanished into the night. Jamal crawled to Jada, ankle useless, his cheeks bandage gone, blood mixing with hers on the floor, her eyes fluttering as she gasped, "Dad!" The TV looped Voss's, smear the forged docs, a noose tightening, the nation flipping from awe to doubt, tweets raging. "Grant's a fraud." Tanya's ralliers faltered, 300 holding, 200 peeling off. The broadcaster blade Voss wielded with glee. Jamal's fists pounded the carpet, knuckles splitting, a howl trapped in his throat. His ankles pain, a dull roar under. The betrayal. Jada pushed up, lip dripping, her head throbbing, blood staining her hoodie as she grabbed the laptop, its battery dying, Voss's reflection still frozen. "He planned this," she rasped, voice steel through the haze, dragging Jamal to the bed, their breaths sinking in the chaos. The motel shook, Ralia's chants faint outside, a lifeline fraying as Voss's lie took root, Eric's fighter pyre crumbling to ash. The unmarked agents left no trace, their SUV a ghost in the night, Eric's arrest a shockwave Voss had timed. To perfection. Jamal's mind replayed the broadcast, his dad's thunder turning to chains, the nation's hope a rug yanked free. Jada's fingers dug into the laptop, its screen dimming, her lips blood a steady drip as she pieced it through. The pain. "Docs were fake," she muttered, voice low, catching a watermark in the corner. Voss's clerk, unnoticed by the feds, a thread they couldn't pull yet. Tanya's absence gnawed, her fate a void since the cabin, her Ralia's roar now a whisper, 300 voices against a city Voss owned. Jamal sank back, ankle pulsing, his cheeks blood crusting, the motel's walls closing in, a cage without bars. Jada's eyes hardened, lip oozing, her mind racing despite the blow, the watermark a spark in the dark. "We're alone," Jamal rasped, voice breaking, hands trembling as he wiped his face, smearing red. Jada shook her head, blood dripping, her resolve iron. "Not yet. We fight." The TV droned, Voss's voice looping. "Grant's a traitor. The forged docs a lie the feds swallowed whole, their cuffs on Eric a win Voss savored." Atlanta's streets quieted, Ralia's retreating, the nation's gaze shifting, the twins' heroism a flicker Voss had snuffed. Jamal's ankle brace creaked, his hoodie a shroud of mud and blood, his dad's promise a memory fading fast. Jada clutched the laptop, its battery dead, the watermark a secret Voss didn't know they held, her lips pain a fuel now. Eric was gone, but they breathed. A fight Voss couldn't kill. What had he forged next? How much deeper could this fall? The motel room 10 miles east of Atlanta pulsed with a flickering bulb, its stale air thick with cigarette smoke and the metallic tang of blood, as Jamal and Jada Lewis huddled on a sagging bed, their hoodies stiff with mud and ash from the safe house fire. 9 years old, Jamal's ankle throbbed in its brace, a swollen purple mass, his cheeks gash exposed, blood crusting his jaw, his knuckles raw from pounding the carpet after Eric's arrest. Jada's swollen lip oozed, her braids frayed and singed, her head pounding from the agent's boot, blood staining her hoodie's collar, her breath a shallow rasp against the night's weight. Eric's laptop lay dead between them, its battery drained, Voss's watermark, Voss's clerk, a faint glow fading on the screen. Jamal's hands shook, his ankle useless, the motel's walls a cage tighter than the jail, Eric's cuffs a chain he couldn't break. "He's gone," he rasped, voice cracking, wiping his cheek, blood smearing his sleeve, the TV's muted drone looping Voss's lie. "Grant's a traitor." Jada's eyes burned, lip pulsing, her fingers tracing the laptop's edge, the watermark a spark in her haze. "Not gone," she said, voice low, steel cutting through pain. "We've got this." She yanked a charging cord from a cracked outlet, plugging it in, the screen flaring back, Voss's reflection from the glitch video staring back. A ghost they'd bury. The motel's Wi-Fi flickered, a weak signal stolen from a neighboring room. But Jada's mind raced, sharper now, her lips blood of fuel she'd harnessed. "He's got files," she muttered, cracking the laptop's security with a password Reese had scribbled on a napkin. "Justice for twins, a relic from court." Jamal leaned in, ankle forgotten, his cheeks sting, dulling as she dug, her fingers flying over keys, pulling tech tricks from a school coding club she'd aced before the fire. Voss's server loomed, a digital fortress, but she slipped in, a back door left by a sloppy clerk, her breath hitching as folders bloomed. Payoffs, hits, rants. Jamal's pulse quickened, a wild thud against his ribs, his hoodies, mud flaking as he gripped the bed, watching Jada unearth gold. Payoffs, spilled bribes, scanned checks to Pike, Grayson, Tyrell, thousands each, dates tying to their frame-up. Voss's signature a jagged scrawl. Hits held worse. Orders. For the cabin bomb, the safehouse mob. Names of dead agents, a ledger of blood Voss owned. Rants burned hottest. Audio clips of Voss snarling, "Black filth needs cleansing. Grant's spawn die first." His voice a venomous hiss, Confederate pride dripping from every word. Jada's lip curled, blood dripping anew, her eyes gleaming. This ends him. They worked fast, the motel's bulb buzzing, Jamal's ankle brace creaking as he shifted, feeding Jada ideas, his voice steadying. "Leak it," he said, pointing to a dark website he'd heard kids whisper about in lockup, a hacker's den beyond Voss's reach. Jada nodded, uploading the files, her fingers trembling but precise, the upload bar creeping as the motel's Wi-Fi stuttered, each byte a brick in Voss's grave. That too it hit, the internet exploding, forums lighting up, nice Voss exposed trending, clips of his rants going viral, black filth looping on every screen, a nation gasping as Atlanta's streets reignited, ralliers surging back, 500, strong chanting, "Burn Voss down." Jamal's chest swelled, a roar trapped in his throat, his cheeks blood a war paint now, the motel shaking with distant cheers. Jada's lip pulsed, her head's ache a dull thud, her hoodie's blood a badge as she slammed the laptop shut, victory close, tangible, a blade they'd forged. "He's done," she rasped, voice fierce, wiping her lip, blood smearing her. Hand, the watermark their ace now played. The TV flickered, news cutting to Voss's rants, anchors stumbling, unverified but damning, the nation's tide turning, ralliers swelling to 700, their voices a storm Voss couldn't. Silence. Then Voss struck a gut punch from the dark. At 3, the motel's door stayed locked, but a text buzzed on Eric's burner, left on the table, its screen glowing. "Tanya's mine. Surrender or she's ash." Jamal snatched it, ankles screaming as he lurched up, showing Jada, their breaths freezing, the words "a noose" snapping tight. A video followed, grainy but brutal. Tanya, stitched cheek bleeding, leg twisted from the cabin, bound in a chair, gagged, her eyes wide with terror, a concrete room behind her, Voss's shadow looming, his sneer off-screen but alive. "You thought you'd win?" His voice purred, a knife glinting as it grazed her throat, her muffled scream shredding the twin souls. Jada's hands flew to her mouth, blood dripping from her lip, her files slipping from the bed. Victory ash in her grip, her head's pain roaring back as she choked. "Mom!" Jamal's ankle gave, crashing him to the floor, his cheeks, gash splitting wider, blood pooling as he clawed the carpet, a howl ripping free. "No!" he screamed, voice raw, pounding the ground, knuckles bleeding anew, the motel's walls a trap Voss had flipped. Tanya's fate hung, a blade's edge they couldn't reach. The ralliers' cheers a cruel echo outside, 700 voices blind to this blow. Voss's goons emerged on the video, 3 shadows in ski masks, their boots scuffing concrete as they circled Tanya, one laughing, "Grant's brats think they're smart." Another kicked her chair, her groan muffled, her legs twist a sick crack, blood pooling under her. The third held the camera, zooming on her stitched cheek, her eyes pleading, a mother's strength fraying under Voss's hate. 48 hours, Voss's voice hissed, the video cutting to black, the burner's screen dark, a countdown ticking in their heads, the files a win they couldn't wield. Jamal dragged himself up, ankle useless, his hoodie's blood a map of their fight. His cheeks pain a dull roar as he grabbed the laptop, its heat burning his hands. "We save her," he rasped, voice breaking, shoving it to Jada, her lips blood dripping as she reopened it, the files still live, the internet still raging. Jada's eyes hardened, head pounding, her fingers trembling as she typed, searching. The video's metadata, a flicker of hope in the chaos. A geotag, faint, a warehouse 10 miles north. Voss's lair a dot they'd hunt. "We've got a place," she said, voice steel, blood staining her teeth. The motel's bulb flickered, the room a battlefield, their hoodies a shroud of mud and blood, the files a weapon Voss didn't expect. Jamal's ankle brace creaked, his knuckles oozing, his cheeks gash a raw line as he nodded. "We go." Jada's lip pulsed, her head's ache a fire she'd ignore, the geotag a thread to Tanya, the ralliers' roar a distant shield. They'd struck Voss, a blow that shook the nation, but he'd snatched their mum, a counterstrike that broke their win. His hate a chain they'd snap or die under. A thug's tattoo flashed in the video's last frame, a coiled snake on his wrist, matching the cop from the precinct raid. Pike's mark. A circle closing from part 1. Jamal's breath caught, his cheeks blood dripping, the connection a jolt through his haze. "It's him," he muttered, voice low, showing Jada. Her lips blood a steady drip as she nodded. "Voss's dog." The files held Pike's check, 5,000 for the matches, a thread tying the raid to this kidnapping. Voss's web a noose they'd choke him with. They stood, Jamal limping, Jada swaying. The motel's door their next breach, the laptop their sword, Tanya's scream, their fuel. The ralliers' chant swelled, 800 now, a tide Voss couldn't see turning, the internet a storm he'd sparked against himself. Jamal's ankle brace snapped, useless, his cheeks gash a badge as he leaned on Jada, her lips blood, his war cry, her head's pain a spur. Voss had Tanya, but they had proof, a fight flipped from victims to hunters. The warehouse loomed 10 miles north, a lair they'd storm or burn. How much time did she have? What else did Voss hide? The motel's flickering bulb cast jagged shadows over Jamal and Jada Lewis as they slipped out into the night. 10 miles east of Atlanta, their hoodies crusted with mud and blood. The laptop clutched under Jada's arm, a ticking bomb of Voss's secrets. 9 years old, Jamal's ankle screamed in its broken brace, a swollen purple wreck, his cheeks gash oozing fresh red, his knuckles raw from the carpet's rage, his breath a shallow rasp against the damp air. Jada's swollen lip pulsed, her braids singed and frayed, her head throbbing from the agent's boot, blood staining her hoodie's collar, her hands steady despite the tremor of Tanya's scream echoing in her skull. They stole a rusted pickup from the motel lot, keys dangling in the ignition. A drunk's oversight they'd seized Jada behind the wheel, her small frame barely reaching the pedals, Jamal's shotgun, his ankle propped on the dash, the laptop glowing as she drove. 10 miles north, the warehouse loomed, a hulking slab of concrete off a gravel road, its windows blacked out, a chain-link fence sagging under neglect. The geotag from Voss's video pulsed on the screen, Tanya's prison a dot they'd storm, Pike's tattoo a thread from the raid, tying this lair to their nightmare's start. "We get her," Jamal rasped, voice breaking, his cheeks blood dripping onto the seat, the pickup rattling as Jada floored it. They ditched the truck 50 yards out, mud sucking at their sneakers, the warehouse's silence a lie under the bee. Hum of crickets and distant ralliers' chants, 800 strong now, a tide Voss couldn't hear. Eric's freed agents met them, 5 shadows in vests, released from custody after the feds cracked Voss's treason lie, their rifles glinting. As they flanked the twins, a whispered, "Grant sent us," their only greeting. Jamal limped, ankle useless, Jada's lip oozing as she led. The laptop swapped for a pistol one agent pressed into her hand, its weight cold, her fingers wrapping tight. The fence gave with a kick, wire bending, and they slipped in, the warehouses. Back door a rusted slab they pried open, hinges groaning. The air inside thick with oil and rot. Concrete stretched 50 feet, a maze of crates and shadows. Tanya's chair a stark island in the center, her stitched cheek bleeding, leg twisted under ropes, her gag muffling a groan as Pike loomed, his snake tattoo stark on his wrist. A knife, twirling in his grip. 2 goons flanked him, ski masks peeled back, their smirks glinting as they paced, Voss's voice crackling from a speaker overhead. "Finish her if they show." Jamal's heart lurched, a sob trapped as he signaled the agents, his cheeks blood a steady drip, his ankles pain a roar he'd ignore. Jada's lip pulsed, her head's ache a fire she'd wield, the pistol raised as she nodded, "Now!" Gunfire erupted, agents fanning out, bullets pinging off crates, one goon dropping with a scream, blood spraying as his knee shattered. Pike spun, knife slashing air, his roar a curse as the second goon fired back, clipping an agent's vest, the man crumpling, his rifle skittering away. Jamal dove behind a crate, ankle buckling, his hands clawing for a loose pipe, its edge jagged, a weapon born from desperation. Jada fired, the pistol kicking her small frame, the bullet grazing Pike's arm, blood blooming as he staggered, his knife clattering. She sprinted, braids swinging, her lips blood dripping as she reached Tanya, yanking the gag free, her mum's gasp a lifeline. "Jada!" Pike lunged, tattooed arm swinging, but Jamal swung the pipe, a crack splitting the air as it smashed Pike's jaw, teeth flying, blood gushing as he fell, a heap of hate silenced. The last goon bolted, agent's shots chasing, his scream echoing as he hit the floor, a puddle spreading under him. Jamal limped to Tanya, pipe dropping, his cheeks gash oozing as he tore at her ropes, hands trembling, blood slicking his grip. Jada helped, pistol discarded, her lips pain a dull thud as Tanya's leg freed, her stitched cheek pressed to theirs, a sob breaking free. "My babies," she rasped, voice raw, blood pooling under her twisted leg, her strength a flicker they'd shield. Agent stormed the speaker, ripping it down, Voss's voice cutting off mid-threat. "You'll pay," a ghost they'd bury. "We've got him," an agent said, cuffing Pike, his jaw a ruin, blood bubbling as he groaned. They dragged Tanya out, Jamal's ankle useless, Jada's head pounding, the warehouse a tomb they'd cracked, agents hauling Pike, their rifles, trained. Outside the pickup waited. Tanya slumped in the back, her leg a wreck, her stitched cheek oozing as she gripped the twins, their hoodies a shroud of blood and triumph. "You did it," she whispered, voice fading, her eyes fluttering as shock sank in. The ralliers chants a distant roar, 800 voices a tide they'd ride. Jamal's cheek dripped, his ankles brace gone, Jada's lip bled, her pistol hand shaking, victory a breath they'd earned. Herrick's agents radioed in, target secured, the night alive with their win, Voss's lair breached, Tanya alive, Pike cuffed, a noose tightening on the judge. They sped south, 5 miles to a safe point, a clinic off Peachtree Road. Medics, rushing Tanya as Jamal and Jada collapsed on a curb, their hoodies steaming in the damp, blood pooling at their feet. The warehouse's echo a scar they'd wear. "He's cornered," Jamal rasped, voice steadying, his cheeks gash a badge now. Jada nodded, lip oozing, her head's pain a spur. Not done. At Voss's mansion, 10 miles west, the judge paced his study, a cavern of oak and shadow, his Confederate pin glinting on a velvet cushion, his sneer a mask of rage. The warehouse feed cut, Pike's silence a blow, the internet storm, his rants, his bribes, crashing his throne, ralliers swelling to 1,000, their chants shaking. His gates. He slammed a fist on his desk, glass shattering, his voice a hiss. Not yet. A hidden panel slid open, a button glowing red, his trump card, a smirk curling as he pressed it. They'll burn themselves. Atlanta erupted at midnight, cell phones buzzing citywide, an alert screaming, "Black uprising detected, protect your homes." Screens flared in bars, shops, homes. A fake broadcast Voss had rigged, his voice calm. "Rioters are loose, defend yourselves." Chaos bloomed, white mobs surging, 500 strong, bats and torches in hand. "No black wins," echoing. As they smashed windows, torched cars, a race riot born from his lie. Black neighborhoods braced, ralliers scattering, 1,000 voices drowned by screams, the city a war zone Voss had lit. Jamal and Jada froze on the curb, medics patching Tanya, 10 feet away, her leg splintered, her stitched cheek bandaged, her eyes fluttering open as the clinic's TV blared the alert, Atlanta's streets a sea of fire beyond the glass. Jamal's ankle pulsed, his cheeks blood dripping, his hoodie a shroud as he stared. He did this. Jada's lip oozed, her head's ache roaring, her hands clenching as she grabbed the laptop from an agent. Its files still live, the internet a storm they'd sparked. Now twisted. "He's burning it all," she rasped, voice breaking, blood staining her teeth. The ralliers' tide broke, 700 fleeing, 300 holding, their chance lost in the riot's roar, Voss's button a match that turned their win to ash. Sirens wailed, cops siding with the mob, their batons cracking skulls, the city a pyre Voss laughed over. An agent knelt, rifle down, his voice low. "He's at the mansion. We've got him." Jamal limped up, ankle useless, his cheeks. Gash a war cry, Jada beside him, her lips blood a fuel, the laptop their blade. "Take us," Jamal said, voice iron, Tanya's hand gripping theirs from the stretcher, her strength a flicker they'd carry. They piled into an SUV, agent speeding west, the clinic fading. Atlanta's flames a backdrop to their hunt, Voss's mansion 10 miles off, a lair they'd storm again. Jamal's ankle brace was gone, his cheeks blood a map. Jada's lip pulsed, her head's pain a spur, the laptop glowing as they planned. Tanya's breath steadying, her leg a ruin they'd avenge. Victory had freed her, a win they'd clawed, from Voss's grip. But his riot flipped it, a city burning as he smirked, his hate a fire they'd quench or die in. A hidden mic crackled on the laptop, Voss's voice leaking from a file they'd missed, his laugh a blade. "I'll bury you!" in flames. Jamal's eyes widened, his cheeks blood dripping. Jada's lip oozed, her head's ache a roar as they gripped the screen, the mansion close, their fight a spark in the inferno. Tanya's hand tightened, her stitched cheek a mirror of their wounds, her voice a whisper. End him. The riot raged, Voss's last gasp, but they'd won her, a step he couldn't undo. What would he unleash next? How could they stop a city's collapse? Atlanta blazed under a midnight sky, its streets an inferno of shattered glass and roaring flames, as Jamal and Jada Lewis sped west in an FBI SUV, 10 miles from Voss's mansion, their hoodies soaked with blood and mud, the laptop glowing with his damning mic, "I'll bury you in flames." 9 years old, Jamal's ankle hung limp, a purple ruin, his cheeks gashed dripping red onto the seat, his knuckles raw from the fight. Jada's swollen lip pulsed, her braid singed, her head throbbing, blood crusting her hoodie as she clutched the device, Tanya beside them, leg splinted, stitched cheek oozing, her grip fierce despite her fading strength. The SUV screeched to a halt outside a news van, 3 blocks from the riot's heart. Agents shoving Jamal and Jada toward a frantic reporter, her mic trembling as ralliers clashed with mobs, 800 against 500, batons cracking skulls. Jada slammed the laptop into the tech's hands, lip bleeding as she rasped, "Play it now." The mic's audio blared, Voss's laugh cutting through the chaos. "I'll bury you in flames." A confession looping on every screen, Atlanta's TVs flaring, the riot's roar faltering as hoods froze, ralliers surged, 1,000 now, their chants drowning the hate. Voss falls. Jamal limped forward, cheek dripping, his voice raw. "He did this," as the reporter stammered, the nation watching, riots stalling, cops turning on the mob, cuffs snapping white wrists. Voss's mansion loomed, agents storming it, dragging him out, his Confederate pin glinting as he snarled, disgraced, his button a dud against the truth. Tanya gripped the twins, her leg a wreck, stitched cheek bleeding, her whisper fierce, "You won." The city stilled, flames dying, ralliers cheering, a tide Voss couldn't break, justice a spark they'd lit. Eric emerged from the shadows, suit torn, shoulder bandaged, freed from feds who'd cracked Voss's lie, his graying hair wild as he pulled them aside, the SUV's engine humming. "I'm out," he said, voice low, eyes heavy, a suitcase in hand, blood staining his cuff. "Feds want blood for this mess. I won't let it touch you." Jamal's chest sank, ankle useless, his cheeks blood a map as he rasped, "Dad." Jada's lip oozed, her head's ache dulling, her glare cutting. "You're leaving again." Eric knelt, suit ripping, his hand brushing their shoulders, a tremble breaking his steel. "I framed myself, took the fall. You're clear, safe. Lead now." He stood, suitcase swinging, walking into the night, his note slipping from his pocket, caught by Jada. "For you always." Her lip bled, her hands shaking, Jamal's sob a quiet storm as Eric vanished, a sacrifice they'd carry. Tanya's grip tightening, her voice steel, "We rebuild." Atlanta smoldered, ralliers 1,000 strong, Voss hauled off, his laugh a ghost they'd silenced, the twins' hoodies a shroud of blood and triumph. Jamal's ankle pulsed, his cheeks, gash a scar, Jada's lip oozed, her head's pain a memory. Tanya's leg a ruin they'd mend. Eric's exit broke them anew, a win costing their rock, leaving them to rise, 9 years old, warriors now. Atlanta healing as they stood, A family fractured but fierce. What lay ahead? How would they lead? This story reveals the brutal reality of systemic racism and the resilience required to combat it. Jamal and Jada, just 9 years old, faced a racist judge, Harlan Voss, who framed them for arson out of sheer hatred, exposing how power can twist justice into a weapon against the innocent. Their journey teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear but the will to fight through it. Whether crawling through prison vents or hacking files to expose corruption, Tanya's unwavering love shows that family can be a fortress even when battered by betrayal and bombs. Herrick's sacrifice underscores that true redemption often demands personal loss, trading his career to shield his kids from a vengeful system. The tale also highlights the strength of community, as ralliers grew from 50 to 1,000, proving collective voices can drown out lies. Yet Voss's final riot reminds us that racism doesn't die quietly. It lashes out, leaving scars. The twins' triumph isn't just survival, it's a spark for change, showing that even the smallest hands can topple giants when armed with truth. The lesson is clear. Justice isn't given, it's seized, and the fight against prejudice is a marathon, not a sprint, demanding every ounce of grit and heart. What do you take from this? Comment below if you think resilience or community was the real hero here. Hit like if this moved you, subscribe for more tales of defiance, and share to spread this truth. Thanks for joining this journey. May you find strength to stand against injustice wherever it hides.